Okay, guys, welcome back to class. Although we're not in class. I mean, if you look behind me, I'm sitting at the beach. One of the advantages of being able to teach online from anywhere. I mean, social distancing, this is me practicing it at the extreme. You can see behind me, there's not another soul in sight. But it does give me an awesome place to teach you guys about the rest of the entrepreneurial stuff we were talking about in class. So this is how we're going to finish our introduction to entrepreneurship. So what we're going to go over today is funding ideas. If you remember, the last couple of classes we had before we left for our extended spring break were on pricing. We spent a couple of classes on pricing, and then we spent a couple of classes talking about, the numbers that matter, balance sheets, cash flows, and financial statements. And so this is the last class we have before our test, which will be our next module. So one of the other advantages I figured out that I was able to do is kind of reintroduce myself as a professor. So one of the advantages of being able to reintroduce myself is I need all of you to forget what I look like in the first place. Because what I thought was, why not look like this guy, who I looked like 20 some years ago? My wife saw that and said, well, that's not going to work. You really look like this guy now that you're getting older. And I said, you know what? If we're going to do these classes virtual and online, I think I'm going to choose this guy to be who I am the rest of the semester. So he'll be making appearances all throughout our presentations on different slides. So when you introduce me to family or friends or someone who hasn't met me before, please make sure you show them this chiseled from stone animated character and say, well, that is exactly what my professor looks like. I'd appreciate it. Okay, so what do we need? We need money, right? We're getting ready to start our company. We've figured out our idea. We've done our marketing research. We've worked through a financial plan. And now we're like, wait a minute. How do I get some money to get this thing started, either off the ground or maybe a small business I've started off to my next milestone? So Fred Smith, he ran into this problem. Fred Smith was the founder of FedEx. What did he do? Well, he once gambled $5,000 to keep his company alive. Remember, we talked about in class that cash is king? FedEx had a big cash problem at one point, and Fred's solution was, I know, I'll gamble $5,000. This is the excerpt from his book where it was written about what he did here. So this is his second in command that's kind of being quoted here. And he said, I asked Fred where the funds had come from, and he responded, the meeting with General Dynamics board was a bust. I knew we needed the money for Monday, so I took a plane to Vegas, won $27,000. I said, you mean you took our last $5,000? How could you do that? He shrugged his shoulders and said, what difference does it make? Without the funds for the fuel companies, we wouldn't have flown anyway. So while Fred's luck held there, this is not a solution I would recommend for you to fund your company if you're in a pinch, but it did work for FedEx. So you have to have a financial plan. Before we go raise money, we have to kind of have a plan of how we're going to go do it. So what are the items that we need to be considering? Well, before you search for capital, let's make sure you ask the following things. One, can you take time away from your business to spend it on fundraising? Well, if you're trying to raise money for your startup, clearly you can take time away from the business because you don't really have a business. Remember what we talked about, until you've made your first sale and actually generated revenue, you don't actually have a business, you have a hobby. That is correct, a hobby. I will say it once again, a hobby. And when I say things 3 times in class, what does that normally mean? Yes, it means the same thing on a video. You very well will more than likely see that or in a reference to that on your exam. Second, is the business on firm footing with its own resources? This is especially true if you're trying to raise money from, like, you've already gotten your business off the ground and now you're trying to raise some money to get it to its next milestone. Let's say that maybe you've built a prototype for a product, but now you need to do testing for that product and you have to raise some money to do that. This right here is when you have to say, can it on its own function? Do I have enough money in the bank for it to function while I'm off trying to raise money? And do I have the right management on board or the right personnel that can keep running my business while I'm gone? Third, what have you accomplished on your own? When you go to raise money, you're going to have some sort of story to tell. You're not going to just be able to show up and say, hey, have an idea, would like you to hand me $100, $200, $2,000, $200,000. It doesn't matter what amount of money you're asking for. People who invest in businesses want to know that they're investing in you as much as the idea. So being able to talk about what you've accomplished on your own is super important. So what does that mean? Well, for instance, I had this business idea and I have talked to 100 potential customers, and here's the feedback they gave me. They all really liked the idea. They thought that they would buy. They thought they would buy at this price point. Or maybe you've already accomplished on your own finding the supplier for your product. It might be in China or from some other overseas country. Maybe you've already built your prototype, but to actually get the number manufactured, you need the money to actually now put in a full-blown manufacturing order. So make sure you've accomplished some stuff on your own before you just go out and ask for money. Do you have a valid business model? And have you tested it in the market with real customers? Have you done a small trial? Have you produced some things and made a few sales? If this was a lemonade stand, have you at least made a few things of lemonade and tried to sell it around campus in a cup and generated a little revenue and actually collected payments from customers? It doesn't matter what business you're trying to do. If you have a valid business model, and you've already tested it in the market with real customers, you're going to be listened to a lot more seriously by the investor pool because they're going to know what you have is real and not just an idea anymore. Do you have some sort of financial plan for growth? If you're asking for money, they're going to want to know, why are you asking for it? What are you going to use it for? And if the money you're asking for is only for a milestone, maybe it's going to take you from milestone 1 to milestone 2. What is your plan to get from milestone 2 to milestone 3? How much more money would you need to raise? Where do you anticipate getting it from? Make sure you have a complete financial plan for growth so that when you're talking to the investors, they understand how and where they fit into the entire picture that you're trying to develop. Have you put together a compelling story? If you've watched Shark Tank, you know that one of the big parts of the Shark Tank video is how the entrepreneur is talking about their history, where they came from, their upbringing, the jobs they've had, the jobs they've lost, the type of parents they had, the type of siblings they had, all sorts of different things, but all of it tied together, where they got the idea, how they started the business, what they've accomplished on their own. They make this all spin together in a compelling story. Well, at least the ones who typically get an investment have a compelling story. Some of the ones that don't get an investment don't have as compelling of a story. So make sure you've rehearsed and put together a compelling story for investors. So those are things to consider. Now, here's a few other things. Number 1, raise only what is needed. Well, what does that mean? Well, let's look at it this way. If you're going to go to college and you anticipate that your 4-year college degree is going to cost you $10,000 a year, you would not typically, if you want to equate that to your business, say, I know what I'm going to do. I'm going to raise $40,000 at the beginning of my freshman year because that's how much I need to get through my senior year. Rather, you would probably raise $10,000, enough to get through your freshman year. And then as you're getting towards the end of your freshman year, you'd go raise another $10,000 to get through your sophomore year. Then as you get through that, you'd raise another $10,000 to get through your junior year. The same type of concept applies when you're raising money for your business. Only raise what you need, the amount you need to get you to the next significant milestone. It keeps you from having to raise money too often, and it allows you to stay focused on your business rather than focus on raising money. Avoid the need to seek financing too often. If you're constantly out raising money, you're not running your business. Also, there's a balance between raise only what is needed and don't go too often. If you raise more than you need, we're going to talk about this in a later video, you're going to pay a lot of money for that capital, because if you raise really early in your venture, you're going to have to give away a lot of equity for that because there's a lot of risk that's attached. But at the same time, you can't try, let's go back to our school example, avoid the need to seek financing too often. You can't say it's going to cost me $40,000 to get through a 4-year degree and then say, oh, I know what I'll do. I'll just raise enough. If it's $10,000 a year, I'm going to try to raise money every month so that I can meet my obligation. I know if it's $10,000 a year, it's like $800 a month, 800 and change. Every month, I'm going to go out and try to raise $800 to get me through my next month. The only thing you'll be doing is raising money, and you won't have any time to actually study, apply yourself, and get your grades. So if you use that example, it'll help you think about how this works. And finally, make sure you have accurate information. If you do not have accurate information, and this goes especially back to competitor analysis and your financial analysis, investors will see through that and not have a lot of faith in you as the entrepreneur, understanding and knowing the market that you're trying to get into. If you can find a mentor or an advisor who has raised money before, I highly recommend you make them your friend, because somebody who's been through this process can give you advice and help you avoid painful lessons, whether it's from wasting time, putting the wrong type of documentation together, or at worst case, getting into a deal that you didn't quite understand, and then you're kind of stuck in something that makes it very hard for you to maneuver, or maybe even to raise more money later. So make sure you find a great mentor or advisor. I've told you guys numerous times that all the successful businesses I've had, I never would have made it in any of them without the great mentors and board of advisors that helped us along the way. Have a good management team in place, because you're going to be gone raising money. They need to be running the business while you're out doing that. That's especially true when you have an ongoing business and you're trying to raise money from milestone 1 to milestone 2 or 2 to 3, etc. If you're a startup, this doesn't matter near as much, because you don't really have a business to run until you've actually raised your capital. And then look for backup investors. Just because someone says, yes, I will invest with you, does not necessarily mean they will write a check, you will deposit it in your bank, it will clear, and that money will be there. Until you know you have a balance of funds sitting in your bank account from a check that has cleared a bank, make sure you are looking for backup investors. Because a lot of people, and this is true even in the investing world, will say, yes, sure, I'll give you a check for 10,000 or 20,000 or 30,000 if you're talking to them about investing in your idea or your business. But when you actually come to them and are like, okay, I'm ready for that check right now, you'd be amazed at the types of excuses that will come up. Everything from, yes, just like students, I'm sorry, the dog ate my homework, to I got into a car accident on the way to class, to, I thought class moved, to I was at the wrong building. It doesn't matter what. There's going to be 1,000 excuses why they can't do it right now. And so make sure you always have a backup in your pocket. Okay, so now that you've kind of understood the plan that's needed, you really have one last large question to answer before you go out and start tapping on sources to get money. And that is, well, how much do I actually need to fund my idea? I mean, how much do I need to start my lemonade stand, or my dog grooming business? Or, if you're doing something in technology, or if you're doing something in manufacturing, how much do I need for all my machines, and how much money do I need? And it varies depending on the type of business you're starting, but there's a nice simple equation that can help us get through this. So how much do I need? Well, you need fixed assets. We've talked about what fixed assets are. Those are machines, computers, any type of asset that you need to help your business function and produce products that you are bringing to the market. Your working capital, which again, we've covered previously, things like accounts receivable, or the money you have to spend on products to put into inventory. And then you have your fixed expenses. And remember, as we discussed, fixed expenses are things like rent, insurance, salaries for employees, etc. So you're going to have a handle on all three of these. And let's do this as an example. I did not want you guys to forget about my wonderful, great, super easy to read handwriting. So I've done this one as a handwritten example for you. So let's assume we're going to open up a t-shirt shop. Well, we need some assets. Okay, we need a screen printing machine. That screen printing machine costs us $7,995. That's our asset amount. So we need $7,995 for our assets for our t-shirt shop. This is a very simplistic model, by the way, because there may be other assets that you require. Well, what's our working capital look like? Let's take a peek. Well, I'm going to have the cost of the ink that I use to put on the screen shirts, and let's say that's $2,000 and it sits up there in inventory. I need the actual t-shirt that I'm going to put the ink on. That's $3,000 and it sits in inventory. And then I need to finance accounts receivable, because I'm selling t-shirts to like teams or larger organizations, and I give them 30 days to pay me after I've sold them the t-shirts. Let's say that's $20,000. So all told, for working capital, I need $25,000. The final thing I'm going to need are my fixed expenses. Let's just pick a few. Let's say we have rent at $1,000 a month, insurance, and some other miscellaneous expenses. Say our insurance is $200 a month, and maybe our miscellaneous expenses are $1,000 a month. I only need 3 months worth. I'm fine thinking that after 3 months, I will be able to have my business cash flowing itself. A lot of people might say, I need 6 months. I don't want to take the risk after 3 months. Somebody else might say, I need a year. This is not a set number. It's X months fixed expenses for a reason, because everyone's ability to take risk differs, and all the businesses differ on how long it might take them to be able to get themselves to like a cash flow positive where they can fund their own business. And so the number of months would vary greatly there, but we're at $6,600 for the fixed expenses for our t-shirt shop. So here's our total example. Well, total required, we have our assets, $7,995. We have our working capital of $25,000. We have our fixed expenses, $6,600, or we need $39,595 total to get this business off the ground. And that's how easy it is to do. Assets plus working capital plus X months fixed expenses gets me the total amount of money that I need to get my business off the ground. So now you know how much money you need to raise, and you have a plan on how you're going to do so. And our next video will cover what sources are available for you to find the money in.